Alrighty, so I don't forget to do that this time. I forgot on the first class. Alrighty, I'm going to repeat. If you have not signed into the chat, put your name and your section number in the chat. It is 8:01, and I am going to go ahead and get started. I am really like a stickler for time. I don't like to waste other people's time, so we will go ahead and start. Um, Forgive my voice. I don't know, is it the pollen? Because I go out every morning with the dog and I come back like this. It'll be another few minutes before it all settles down. Okay. Would anybody like to open us up in prayer this morning? And don't everybody get off mute and volunteer.
I will.
Thank you, Tyler.
Everybody bow your head. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the many blessings that you've given us. Lord, thank you for this class and thank you for the leaders that we have that lead us to do our best in this class. Lord, I pray that you just watch over us and take care of us as we go through this class, through our educational leadership adventure, and lead us to do what's best and make our education inside Mississippi and further than that, better than it is now. Lord, I pray that you watch over us and take care of us, lead us throughout this day. Forgive us where we fail you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Tyler. So we do have a heavier little class today than, well, this is the only heavier one in comparison. We'll go through our domains 5 and 6. We'll look at we'll do a mock teacher interview evaluation, not interview. I've been in interview mode all week. A mock teacher evaluation because that's one of your assignments coming up. And then we'll discuss part 2 of your SMART goals assignment. And then at the end, any questions you may have about any upcoming things or past things, we'll have time to answer all of those things. For those of you that just signed in, please go in the chat and put your name as it appears in William Carey, as well as your section number, either 80E or 81E, please and thank you. All right, so close that out. We'll jump right in and we'll look at the different domains first before we look at anything else. Let me get my slide ready. There we go. And I'll cross my fingers that it works today. Look at that. It's working. All righty, so we have gotten to the point where you guys have already turned in domains 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're down to the last two, domains 5 and 6, which, if you ask me, which you didn't, are two of my favorites. I say that because domain 6, when we start talking about our financial part of it, was the area I had to learn the most about. And I still constantly learn because budget codes change. What you can spend and what you can't spend out of the different budget codes change. And so that's why I always say those are that one is one of my favorites because I think of myself as a lifelong learner and it keeps me on my toes to keep learning. So that's domain 6. And then we'll look at domain 5, where you'll start digging into all the things about your value system. And so you'll start really thinking through some of that. When I always think about core values, and I've said that since I started teaching this class, you should know those before you start in this profession, because when you meet with all the different departments in your school district, when you meet with parents, when you meet with teachers, you have to know exactly what it is you actually believe in, because if you don't, then you're pulled in different directions. And keep it simple. I always think about the elevator speech and keeping it simple. I always say that the thing that I believe in most is that kids feel safe and loved. And everything that I do falls under those two things. If a kid doesn't feel safe, they're not going to learn. If a kid doesn't feel like you care about them, I say love, but have a sense of respect for you, Because we get into high school, it's a little different, but a sense of respect and a sense of being or belonging, they're not going to learn from you. So that's why my core values kind of hinge on those two things. But as you're thinking about the values that the school leader is committed to, the big things are we got to be transparent, we have to be trustworthy, have some cultural responsiveness, and then again, going back to that piece about safety. These are the values that the school leader has to instill in the school so that they're perceived by all stakeholders. The image, you are the front line of the school, so that image has to be portrayed and it has to be seen. So that's just a general gist of these two different domains. And if you guys have any questions as I'm going through this, please come off mute and ask. Let's see. Is it gonna let it? Okay, there we go. So core values, domain 5, it has 3 different elements to it. And it just goes back to what I said, that leader being transparent, being able to communicate effectively, and then demonstrates professional growth. We always talk about teachers needing to grow professionally, but even as a leader, you still have to continue to grow. You have to have trust of the staff and the school community that all of your decisions are guided by what is best for each student. And sometimes that gets a little foggy because you're wanting to make sure your teachers are happy. And sometimes making the teachers happy doesn't do what's best for kids. So you have to upset teachers to do what's best for kids. It's a really tricky little thing you have to kind of balance. And then element 3, as the leader, you ensure that the school is perceived as safe and culturally responsive. And going back to those 4 things that I talked about before, as the school leader, you want to create this climate that shows transparency, trust, cultural responsiveness, and safety. Um, in the coming weeks, you're going to do an assignment on culture and climate. You'll watch a video. Well, it's 2 videos that you'll watch and then write a response to the videos. And it really digs into, Ron Clark is one of them, where you'll look at how he talks about teachers and the elements that they're in as it pertains to your culture and climate. And then another video that really digs deep into this. But I know people like to intertwine the two. But when I think about culture, I think about the actual school, the traditions, the things that if you walk in the school and took away, that everybody in the community would be upset about. So those things that are your culture, those things run a little bit deeper than your climate. They run deep. When we start thinking about the climate, it's the way people feel when they walk in your building. Do they feel like it's a safe building? Does everybody feel warm and invited? Do they feel valued? So that's the climate, and the climate changes. I think about my front office staff when it's a program going on and it's a lot of people coming in and out. Some mornings I'm like, okay, everybody breathe. Let's take a beat. All right, we're here for people. Let's put our welcome to Walmart, our Chick-fil-A smiles on, and let's be customer service today. That's that climate, because that does have a different feel from day to day. And sometimes, like I said, you have to remind your people we're customer service and we have to make people feel warm and invited. The school leader, you have to have a profound influence on the way every member of the system feels. And that's a tough one too, because if you're in your element and you're busy and a teacher stops you but wants to tell you about her kid's super great project, you got to stop and listen, because that makes people feel valued. It makes people feel like they're a part of your community. Even with parents, when you're at the Lowe's and they want to talk for 35 minutes about something, and here in Madison, you think of it, we're a very small community. I am going to bump into a parent every time I'm out in public. And I have to remind myself, customer service, man, customer service. And so you have to be always ready to treat people very kindly because, again, you are setting the tone for your school. And I love the word perception because everyone's perception is different. So you're going to have to be that person as you think about core values that you set that tone. So whatever tone you set, it will impact the performance of teachers and students. If the tone is, state testing is serious business, everybody in your building hunkers down for state testing. If it is felt like it's lackadaisical, you may have a kid with an AirPod in their ear during state testing. So you have to kind of think through all of those things when you're looking at your core values. And I'm not going to really drill down in these because I think we've gone through them. But just always remember element one, that you're gonna be transparent. And even with transparency, there are some things that come down from the district office that you have to keep a lid on. And there's rumors in the neighborhood, there's gossip within your school. And when you're standing before your staff and you can say, there is some changes coming. I am not at liberty to say those at this moment, but as soon as I get the go ahead, you'll be the first to know, because that's being transparent. I know, but I can't tell you right now. And I just feel like teachers respect that. I respected that as a teacher, and I try to do that for my people every time that I hear the rumors in the area. Um, I always build a professional network. I do love the fact that William Carey does cohorts. I still text some of the cohort members that I started the program with when I have questions, or how do y'all deal with this at your school? Those types of things. And you may not think about it, but it is an island when you get to this seat. It's a very small island. And so build those professional networks if you can. Element two, broken down, you have to have integrity. It's one of those things, you can't throw the rock and hide your hands. You just got to stand firm, and you got to be able to say, oops, I messed up. I'm sorry. This is what we should have done. And going forward, we will switch. That to me is the bigger thing of integrity, is being able to stand before your staff and say, oh, I messed up. Or being able to stand before anyone and say, okay, we made a bad judgment call as it pertains to discipline or anything else. Because that's showing you have integrity. You know when you've messed up and you own it. And it also in turn leads your staff to doing the same thing. And here's the other one, making those tough decisions. I tell my staff, we don't deal with blood. We're not life or death changers. A grade is a grade, but it isn't going to be the bigger impact of this person living or dying. If we need to sleep on a decision, we have that autonomy to do so. Sleep on it. Let's come back to the table in the morning. And it's okay to tell a parent we're still negotiating, not negotiating. We're still investigating an incident, or we're still discussing what happened. It's okay, and we will get back with you tomorrow with a decision. Because our decisions aren't going to be popular, not for parents, not for teachers, and not for students. But if you're making the best decision that goes back to your core values, then it is a good decision, and you have to live with it. Um, this one about being safe and culturally responsive, we have to always remember that kids are being bullied even if we don't see it. And I know on a middle and high school level, it's a lot more than even on the elementary level because of the social media aspect and all of those things. But I'm one of those people. I tell my staff, I'm not non-confrontational. I'm confrontational. I like to go ahead, address what's going on, call the parent, call the kid, call the teacher, and deal with it. I don't like things to fester, because I feel like when things fester, they grow. And if you go ahead and say, okay, I have heard that this is going on, I'm not saying your child did the bullying, but this is what has been brought to me. Please speak to your kid about it, and we're going to keep looking into it on the school level. Sometimes breaks down a lot of the bullying that goes on. And making sure that we understand that we know what the desired behaviors are, so that we can set the tone and moving forward with our staff and students and community. Academic safety, when children feel safe to take risk. I hate to go in a classroom and all the kids look scared to ask a question. They're scared to raise their hands. That's to me an academic safety issue. Kids should be safe, feel safe in their classroom to take the risk of saying, "Hey, I thought outside the box on this question. What do you think?" So making sure that you support that in your schools. So, in conclusion, to domain 5, core values, you should communicate core values through every decision, action, and policy established at the school, and also know what you value, because what the leader values creates the climate of the school. Moving out, any questions about domain 5 or any comments, anything you'd like to share? It is a virtual class, participation is great. All right, keeping on. Domain 6 is our resource management. So with this, there are 3 elements that we're going to look at. The school leader ensures that there's management of the fiscal, that's your money that you don't touch. The technological, we have so much tech in our buildings now. And then the physical resources, that's all the things that they walk in your building and put an asset tag on. That those things fall under you, and that has to support effective instruction and achievement of each student. Element 2 breaks down utilizing systemic processes to engage district and external entities in support of school improvement. And then element 3 is where you ensure compliance, that you're complying to the district, state, and federal rules and regulations that support effective instruction and achievement of students. Now we talk about operational management, and y'all will see this again when you start doing your hours, because it does hit on a PCL standard. Your operational management is your day-to-day business of operating the school. You have to be very knowledgeable. That's the word. You have to be knowledgeable of your budget, and you have to know what is actually in your building. And that's the thing, I think, coming from an assistant principal to a principal, that I had to do a lot of like hit the ground running, learning. And I was in charge of fixed assets as the assistant principal, but I didn't realize all the other budget items that needed to make sure that I had an understanding of. So that would be one of the things I would say as you're shadowing and walking with your mentor, is asking about how do you do your budget. Are you guys allowed to move money from one budget code to another budget code? When it comes to doing a purchase order, how many people have to touch it before it is actually approved? Like, those are the kind of things that I feel like going into the role of a principal, that there needs to be some teaching around, for lack of a better way of saying it. Element 1 is that you're going to ensure that you are a good manager of all the things in your building, the fiscal, technological, and the physical resources, because everything you purchase has to support instruction and achievement. And that is just, it just is. You can't go buy your teacher gifts, because that does not have anything to do with instruction and achievement of students. So you must balance that operational management to support your role as an instructional leader. And you have to make sure your staff have like the adequate materials to teach. And sometimes we buy too many items and teachers aren't using them. And to me, that's wasteful. We do an inventory every year. What programs are we like just letting live on a computer? We need to get rid of those things. I have a leadership committee, and I tell them exactly what are we spending on things. We talk about, this is how much this program costs. Are you using it? Go back and talk with your team. Make sure these are things that are worth our time to be paying for. Because if it's not linked to student achievement, then we should not be purchasing those things. But your budget is clearly aligned. You have to prioritize to support instruction and achievement. You may want to buy new Promethean boards, but this is the year that you have to do a new math adoption. So you have to kind of balance all that out, because what's there is all you have to spend. Element 2, the school leader utilizes systematic processes to engage district and external entities in support of school improvement. So with that being said, do you have partners in education? Do you have someone, or are you the person who writes the grants for your school? Who are your community partners? Are you working alongside any universities to help support your students? That's all part of your fiscal management, because if there isn't enough, how do you make it enough? A lot of schools have very organized PTOs, PTAs that help support in a lot of ways. But knowing who those partners are is going to be very essential. Um, let's see. Element 3, you have to be compliant. If it's federal dollars, you can only spend those dollars in a certain manner. If it is funding that is strictly furniture, as simple as that. Sometimes you can only buy furniture with that, even if you don't need furniture. So you have to be very compliant as it pertains to what the district states, what the federal, state, and local guidelines are. You must have a knowledge of these regulations and then plan accordingly. You are ultimately responsible for all things. I know I have a few listed, but you are ultimately responsible for everything that goes on. Even if you delegate someone else as that person that's in charge of that, they still need to sit with you and you guys should be able to debrief so that you have a working knowledge of what is going on. It is not micromanagement, it is being knowledgeable of what is going on in your building. And I always say they're not going to go to the assistant principal to talk about this because that's who you assign to this role. They're going to come to you and you have to give a rundown of what's going on in your building. And so that requires you to have multiple management responsibilities. So that is our elements 5 and 6. Are there any questions about that? I know it felt like a speed round of instruction, but I know you guys are reading the actual chapters, so you know majority of this information. Any questions about core values or your resources? Hearing none. All right, we're going to keep on keeping on. So what I want to do next is I'm going to take us to our Canvas module. Let me in here. Student. Two for two today. I like it. That's what happens when I restart my computer. Alrighty, so looking at our Canvas module, I feel like this class is the one every time in the spring is so broken up because of spring break that I have to keep myself organized to remember where we are. But we did have a spring break in there, and so now we're into April, and the weeks kind of go quicker at this point. We're in our virtual class for today. This tomorrow we have Dropbox 5 and 6 that are due for our domains assignments. And then next week, we're moving into week 6. I needed to tell you guys, there was an adjustment, not on this one, it's the next week, I'll get to it. But you have your group project for your SMART Goals assignments for number 2. And I want to talk about that one for just a moment if I can get to it. All right, it went there. I want to just make sure we all understand. In these assignments, part 1, you've submitted. Part 1, now we're going to continue with part 2. We're not going to say, okay, part 1 submitted, let's just do part 2. You're adding on to the original document. So you'll still have your cover letter. You'll still have the first chart. And those of you that did all the suggested things at the bottom, you're a peach. Thank you for doing that, but it was not required. All I wanted was the box. So if you would, when you get ready to do the second part, you could delete all the other stuff. You have to download the chart. Let me go back. I think I did. I got ahead of myself. Okay. Template. Are we going to open? There we go. All righty. So the second, cover sheet, first page. Second sheet, first chart that you turned in with the project 1. Third sheet is this, right? It is the part 2 school improvement plan. So you will put those two, you're going to come up with 2 strategies. And so those of you who listed them, you're literally cutting and pasting or retyping. Who's responsible in the building to carry out what you're implementing? What is the timeline? Is it going to be we're starting in August and we're going to go to May until state testing? Is it that we're starting in August and we're going to do a checkup in December? So, what is the timeline? What resources do we need in order to do the things that we've listed as strategies? So, that resource could be that we're pulling MVP passages, we're pulling iReady, whatever it is that you're going to use to help students learn. Then evidence of progress. What are we using to ensure that these students are tracking in the right direction to improve on the actual standards that they scored so poorly in? So that's how we filled this particular chart out. And now you're going to have to do two of these strategies because remember you listed two goals. So that's the first goal. This is for your second goal. So that's the way we filled this out. I'm going to say that everyone who does this part, you guys should be doing this together. When I open up one person's paper and then I go, how I grade group projects, if I start with, just say I start with Amanda, I'm going to go from Amanda to Madeline to Kelsey because those three people work together. And when I grade those, they should all look exactly the same. So making sure we're aligning across the board, everybody is doing the exact same thing. And why is that important? Because it's called a group project. No one should go rogue and do their own thing. Okay. Now, after we're on page 3, we've gotten our cover sheet. We have our first project there, that first template. And now we've put our second template in and we have our 3 pages. And this template may go over a page. So you may be 3 or 4. I don't know. The next page is your narrative because you have to do a narrative explaining your root causes, right? So let's get to that part. And I want to show you on here the narrative portion. What areas identified as needing improvement do you need to determine root causes? So, a root cause, let's think about that. And I like to use math because it's really specific, but we'll do ELA because sometimes I always use math. If I'm teaching children summarizing, if they don't know how to find the main idea and details, they're not going to summarize. So somewhere or another, we've got to backtrack to figure out what's the missing link as to why they can't do this particular skill. Same thing when we're talking about decimals and fractions. What is the prerequisite for students to be able to do this task? Those are root causes. Attendance can be a root cause if I take a breakdown of my class and I notice every student who is not mastering this skill was absent when I taught this content. But that is something you can only do if that is your particular class, right? But if it is kiddos that didn't go to school at our school this year. Like we break down root causes in a lot of different ways because we'll even look at if it's a third grader that didn't come from our sister school next door. Well, they may not have learned this particular skill because they weren't in our building. Let's go back and teach this prerequisite so that we can build this in for the student. So just looking at root causes and making sure you have conversation around what are things that prevent kids from learning this standard. Does that make sense? All righty. And here's the other part, guys. You have to include a copy of your data every time you turn this in. And I do check for those things. Okay, so all of that to say, this is what is needed for this assignment when you turn it in. Here's the rubric. If you notice, I do grade using the rubric. I am going to look for exactly these things. These are where your points come from. So if you have 2 SMART goals and they met the criteria of being specific, measurable, attainable, and most people put in SMART goals based off standards. If your SMART goals come from the standards, you met the requirements. Then you have to have 2 strategies that can realistically be implemented to meet the SMART goals and strategies from Marzano, they have to be included, right? If your strategies are vague or you only do one, you don't get all 25 of those points. You have to do a narrative with the root cause. And yes, everyone's narrative has to be the same in the group. Yes, I'm going to answer that question. The narrative identifies the possible root causes and explain how root causes can be identified and addressed as part of a plan. That's exactly what we just talked about. And that you use the templates that are provided, spelling and sentence structure. Y'all have not had an issue with any of that. APA format with the narrative portion. So your information, if you know, Carbo and Marzano, those are our authors. Making sure we're gleaning from what they've said as we're doing our narrative. And that is all this assignment requires. Any questions about this assignment? You do have to take yourself off mute to do so, to ask the question.
Dr. Cockrell, when it says person responsible, would that be the teacher, like just the teacher, or would it be like the specific person? We're using data from one of like our group members. I didn't know if we put like their specific name or if that even matters. I don't.
No, you don't need a specific name. So if it is like a tier 2 intervention, the classroom teacher may be doing it. And you know, if you have academic tutors in your building, and you may pull that group to go the academic tutor for that portion, or your literacy specialist, the math specialist, the biology tutor. So any of those people that are utilized to help with those strategies, that's who you list. Now, we're not being specific like Mrs. Bouchalon will do this. No. And if it's like all of the 4th grade teachers are doing it, you would say 4th grade teachers. So vague, but specific. Thank you. Good question. Anyone else?
You answered my question. I was going to ask if the narrative had to be the same as well. Apparently, that's one that pops up quite a bit.
It is. And so that's, I get emails about that later. So that's why I have made a note to say it out loud now. All righty. Okay, so I want to go on through our Canvas module just a bit because I had to update a date in here. And maybe that was
Dr. Cockrell, I have a quick question about the data. You
Yes, ma'am.
said you do want us to include the data each time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so just
you
at the
can-
end?
It could be a separate upload. I know it's kind of hard to cut and paste a lot of things into it, but if you upload your project first and then go in and just upload another document, you can upload your data next. So yeah. I want to say this is the date that was changed. It had April 20th for your project too, but it should have been the 13th. And so that is due next week. It was in the right location. It just had the wrong due date. Okay. And then the next thing that you guys will go into, and we're going to start on this next, will be your informal mock teacher evaluation. And this has some layers to it, but we're going to debrief the layers after we do a little sample mock evaluation. It's not an interview. Yeah, I'll let you know I've been in the interview world for a minute here. And then week 8, remember I talked about you guys will do a culture and climate activity. So there are 2 videos listed. So one is all about your culture and climate, and it has specific questions to it. And then you'll watch a Ron Clark video and then answer some questions specific to it. And then we have I think, a virtual class on that week of the 26th as well. For that, but I want to click on this so I can go through this a little bit with you. Okay, so you're gonna watch that video, and after you watch the video, and I want to spend a few minutes just really just going over this because I hate for people to lose points. I really do. You just don't understand how I haggle over taking points because I hate doing it. I actually took a notebook and literally wrote out, like, if this is incorrect on a paper, this is how many points, because I like to do the exact same thing. But I don't like for people to lose points. So as we look at this assignment, right? The essential question you're answering is, how do core values create the climate or perception of the school, right? That is the overarching question. That is not the question only, oh, this is the question I'm answering, okay? But it is the overarching, right? As you're listening to that video, that's what you're taking notes on. That essential question. And I'm trying not to confuse anyone. So, but as we break it down, paragraph 1, you are going to clearly define and explain what culture is in the school setting. It is stated in the video. It is also stated in this book. So you have two things that you're relying on. You're relying on what you read in School Leadership for Results, and you're also relying on what is stated in that video. That's paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, you are going to clearly define and explain what climate is in the school setting. And if you remember, when we went through the PowerPoint, I just told you those two things. And they are in the book listed just the way I said it, because I pulled that information from the text. She is going to clearly state that in that video. Paragraph 3, okay, is where you are going to explain the significance of how core values, the core values of the leader, how it impacts and creates the climate or perception of the school culture. You see the breakdown. A lot of times, and I go through this because a lot of times people see this question and that is what they answer. That is what they submit. And then they're upset with me when their score comes back a little not the way they want it. So I have spent, since a few classes back, explaining this portion because it is very explicitly stated what is needed to get a 50 on this assignment. Okay, you do know, and I don't have to touch on that. You all know that you have to have a cover page and a reference page, all of those things. In order to do your reference for the video, use this site. It will help you. I do not grade really rough on the citation of the video because I know it's confusing for a lot of people. Anywho, here's your rubric for that. Again, I do use this rubric. So if you read your paper and compare it to this rubric and you can check every box, you're going to get your 50 points. Any questions about that? All right, hearing none, or you got to touch the mute, you got to take yourself off mute to ask the question. All righty, go back. Okay, that's culture and climate. We will meet again before your 6 domains project and your group project are done. But I want to talk about this group project. And guys, those of you that are in the master's class, you can ignore everything I say from this point about this project. This project is for the specialist and EDD students only. So this particular assignment is a best practice assignment. I like the reason we do this assignment. I just know that it does stir up some confusion sometimes for students. For this assignment, you work with the group that you're doing your group project on. That you're doing your data project with. You work with those same people and you're going to create a best practice project. In that project, you're going to pull 5 best practices from the elementary world, 5 from the middle school world, and 5 from the high school world. If your group only has elementary people, you may have to reach out to some other people or assign people to reach out to middle and high school to get some best practices. I'm going to speak on what are best practices. In elementary, it may be how you use PBIS as your behavior. In middle school, it may be your bail schedule. In high school, it may be how you guys run your lunch blocks, because I know in bigger high schools, y'all have a lot of lunch blocks. But how the school effectively runs is it will speak to the best practices in the building, and you're going to list those best practices and tell what they are. These are slides in a PowerPoint, Canva, Google, whatever you like to use. You're only doing 5 for elementary, 5 for middle, and 5 for high school. If you can get all 5 on one slide, I don't knock it. I just know some people need a lot of room, but that's what this assignment entails. Be creative. It's a PowerPoint, it's a Canva, it's a Google Doc. Make it look how you want it to look. And if you want to use a Microsoft document and just list the 5, however you want to do that, it is up to you to be as creative as you need to be. I am looking at whether these are best practices. That's what I will grade it on. And that's the part of it that you have to talk about with your team. And if you want to assign it, as I said, if you have 3 people in your group, you may want to say, okay, you do the 5 elementary, you do the 5 middle, you do the 5 high, and y'all come together and put it together. But like all group assignments, everyone in that group should have the exact same thing when they turn it in. That is part of it. And you'll upload that to Canvas. And here's the rubric also for those things. So just make sure, and this is based off 100 points. So making sure that you're working with your group to come up with those things, to make sure you work with your mentors. And I get the question every year about the reference page. If you have okay, so just say you do elementary on one slide. At the bottom of that slide, reference who you got the information from. If it came from, use myself for example, Dr. Cockrell, Mansdale Upper Elementary School principal. That's all you have to do for that reference. If you want to put it on the slide, or if you want to wait till you get to your last slide and reference the 3 people that you got your information from. That part is up to you. But I do like for us to give credit to the people we've sat down and we've talked to. And I want to, and I don't want to give you false information, but I think this project, you can use it later when you start doing your hours. If they haven't changed that part much, it will service as some of your hours. But making sure that you work with your group to get that done. Any questions about this assignment?
So, Dr. Cockrell, one question about, so middle school and high school,
Mm-hmm.
if they had some of the same ones, like
Yes,
communication or something like that, I mean,
it's okay.
okay, okay.
Yes, because middle school and high school do track a lot alike, and so it may look the same. But in your group, you may have different people, whereas I know in Germantown, they use school status, but then someone else may use Power School. Those are the same thing as communication, how you're getting communication out, but different names. But if both are using school status, then that is the way that communication is given. And that is a best practice. All righty. Any other questions about that? You can email me later because I know you will. Those that won't come off mute. It's okay. I understand. All righty. So that is that. The 6 domains project is pretty similar to what I was saying about the best practices. You're going to take what you've learned this trimester with all the domains, and you're going to create a PowerPoint with the essential information. If you were in class, if this was a face-to-face class and you were in class and you had to present your 6 domains project, that is the way you would generate this. It says PowerPoint, but I know people have gone away from PowerPoint. Now we use Canva a lot and we use Google Slides a lot. So whichever way you want to present that. But this project is about the same, 8 to 9 slides. You have a title slide. And you also have your reference, because your reference for your domains project is this lovely book that we have. And so with that being said, you will take the 6 questions that you've answered over the course of the trimester, and you will present that. In your mind, as you're creating this presentation, you're creating it thinking in the mindset that I'm going to walk into William Carey before my peers and I'm going to present this. So that's what your slideshow should look like. You're not going to cut your paragraphs and put it on a slide. Okay, you're taking that big information of what an administrator needs to do to make, I'm sorry, I read that wrong, as a leader to make decisions based upon your school's data. You're going to list that out creatively and put it out there for us to see. Any questions about that? And you'll do that for all 6 domains. I know one other question I always get about this project is the cover letter. You don't have to use a William Carey cover sheet for this. You're going to have a cute PowerPoint or whatever you use, and it'll be that slide will serve as your cover page, that first slide. So just keeping in mind the things that you need to put on there to serve as the cover. All righty. No questions. Okay. Moving on. Y'all are a quiet group this morning. Also, I always like to mention, and I'll mention this on our 3rd virtual, be sure you're checking your William Carey email. I will use Canvas Messenger, but not a lot. I prefer the email. If you're missing any work or, you need to complete something, email me, let me know. And then week 10, I like to mention this early because it does not fall on a Sunday. And you have to know that, because if you don't, you'll kind of miss that assignment. I've had that happen a few times where I've had to email people to say, do your Dropbox for your week 10 discussion. Please don't lose those easy 15 points. So that's that. Any questions about any of those things? And the other thing I'll tell you, those best practice activities, I will put in your module. It'll fall back under here so that you'll be able to have access to your whole cohort and seeing what other best practices are within our cohort, so that it could be a document you can have for later. All right, and there is a video here explaining in detail your best practices assignment. Trying to make sure I did not forget or leave anything off. All righty, so let's jump into our mock evaluations. We're going to go back to this box. What I need you guys to do is take out a sheet of paper. If you don't have one, grab one real quick, just one sheet. And you're going to take it and fold it hot dog style, longest hot dog. You're going to take a sheet of paper and fold it the long way, or hot dog. If you ever taught elementary children, we have a phrase or a name for everything. I see some people grinning. Yep, y'all know we do. Hot dog, hamburger, crisscross applesauce. I mean, we can come up with some stuff. All righty, so when you open it up, on one side, you're going to put teacher, and on the other side, you're going to put student. And guys, we're going to do it on the front of the page, and then we're going to do it again on the back side of the page. So don't write a whole lot front and back. We just, we're going to use both sides of the paper. And if you're one of those people who don't like to write on the back of your paper, grab 2 sheets. I do know those people exist too. Someone's grinning. She believes me. All right, teacher, student. Okay, just sit that down for just a minute. And we're going to talk about our Mississippi's rules to this. And I'm going to be very transparent in telling you guys, this has changed. And I have to get with Dr. Sellers so that we can update this book. I'm going to go over the book that is from 2016. But again, I know that it has changed. 1819. They have redone the Mississippi Growth Rubric book. And you're getting an older copy. I'm sorry. Because I've not gotten with Sellers to update this. But we're going to talk about some key things. Some of the information they've updated, but the parts of it that are essential for this class, they're the same, okay? As we talk about the growth rubric, I don't know how much you guys know about this, but I'm sure you're getting observed by your principals. And this is a lot of where all of this is stemming from. The state of Mississippi has procedures in place for how we actually do teacher observations. And the growth rubric is what we follow. I'm gonna let you guys read all of that on your time. I'm gonna stop right here, okay? This book is in your module, so you can go in the module and download it and kind of peruse it. But the parts of it that I really want us to focus on is the wheel, right? The observation and feedback cycle. And this is Nicole Cockrell's view of this, okay? This is not anyone else's, it's just my view. I am in classrooms 90% of my day. My husband fusses at me because I don't get home a lot of days till 6 o'clock because I do paperwork, return phone calls, all of those types of things. I don't start that until about 3 o'clock. Sometimes 3:30, sometimes 4 o'clock if I have after school meetings. Because I like to spend my day part being an instructional leader. And the only thing that keeps me from being an instructional leader is when the building is on fire, figuratively, when the kids are acting a fool and things of that nature. But if it is a normal day of the week and that everything is just running smoothly, I like to be in classrooms, whether it is informally, whether it is a walkthrough, whether it is me just not having anything else that I rather do, right? And I'm going to tell you, this is the most essential thing you can do if you are in a leadership position. Whether you are in charge of MTSS, a literacy specialist, whatever your role is, you have to be comfortable going into classrooms. And that's just it. That's the bottom line. Because when you're sitting in a parent-teacher conference, you need to be able to speak to what you have seen in that classroom. Not what you're making up or the teacher has told you. And if you're in classrooms and you're in the hallways and you're walking your building constantly, if you have a parent say to you, this teacher yells a lot, you'll be able to say, oh God, I'm not talking to her about that because I've heard her yelling. Or you can say, this is the most soft-spoken teacher in this building. The only way to be able to do that is to be seen, to be in the building. Because if you have a teacher that yells a lot, that's the room you're in a lot. Because guess what? They won't do it if you're there. So I know a lot of teachers cringe when they hear that their principals are in the building a lot. In the classrooms a lot. But it isn't I always say it's not an I got you. It is I got you. I'm going to support you because I know who you are as a teacher. I can support you in a meeting. I can support you in any aspect because I know your classroom. So as a professional, you have to be comfortable with people coming in and you have to be comfortable going in. I love when district personnel comes in the building because you're coming to my school, I'm going to take you and I'm going to brag on everybody who's in my building. And how can I do that? Because I believe in observation and feedback. Observations are important. Feedbacks are essential. And I live and die in that realm. I like to sit down with my teachers and hear what they have to say. And how empowering is it for that person to have my attention? I'm not doing anything else but that. But let's talk about that. What does that look like? So if we start here at the top, right? We're in there, we're doing a classroom observation. We have to be looking for clear, specific, actionable, and timely things that we're going to give feedback on, right? We're also there to help with changes in practice. Not every classroom you go in needs some changes. I have some rock star teachers. I go in there really because I need to learn a little bit. I don't need to tell them any changes in their practice, but I am a sounding board because those are your teachers that want to implement new things. So when they sit with you for feedback, they'll say to you, I know you saw this, but I'm thinking about changing that up and we're needing to do it this way and that way. That feedback time, following up and having additional feedback, allows you to assist them in changes in practice. And it's not a negative. This is impactful. This is something that's going to change the way instruction's being implemented. And then in those classrooms where there is a need for change, you get to sit with the teacher. And I always say, I don't offer up suggestions a lot. I ask clarifying questions a lot. I'm a questioning guru. I'll sit with a teacher and I'll say, oh, just kind of tell me, like, I was in there and I saw the kids doing an independent center where they were measuring these items. Tell me what your thought processes were when you put these items out. And I've had teachers tell me that was the worst idea I've ever had. Or I've had them say, oh my gosh, they learned so much from their peers. The feedback is not for you to sit down and say, when I was in there, that group was not doing what they were supposed to be doing. I had to correct them. You ask questions. People learn when they come to the table already having processed what you've seen. So just being aware of that, and that to me was a harder thing coming into the role, even as a literacy specialist. And I was going into English language arts classes that my principal sent me into because they saw some things that needed to be changed and wanted wanted me to put eyes on it and come up with some suggestions. And I was ready to go because I'm like, she should have did this and this and this. That wasn't the role. As a literacy specialist, coaching is part of that job and kids is part of that job. So I needed to listen more and assist more, not suggest. So keeping that in mind, and some of us are real sticklers about classroom management. Well, you go into some classrooms and the teachers are not, but you're not looking for how well their classroom management is being handled. You're looking for our kids learning. That's it. And if you can go in a disruptive room and kids can tell you what's going on, hey, they're learning. I had to learn that. And I'm very, very honest about those kinds of things. I was a stickler. I am a stickler for time. Y'all know that. When we went to the restroom, do your business. This is not for chatting. Let's go. I had that down to 2.5 minutes. We're not going to spend 5 minutes at the restroom. And my teacher cohorts knew you don't talk to Cockerel when she's at the restroom because she's kind of like this because she's got to get back. I'll talk to you first thing in the morning. I like to get here early. If you want to chat, get here early with me. We can chat. But when the bell rings, I'm in this learning thing now. I've transformed to who I need to be. So just knowing that some people aren't who you are, they're who they are, and they're really good at being them. So I like to always give that spiel. It's a little bit longer than what you wanted, but it's okay. So as we get to this portion, when you're going in as the observer, you are looking for relevant evidence in a lesson. Are the kids engaged? Is the teacher teaching the standards? Is there depth to what they're teaching? Are they on track with their peer teachers? Those are the things you're collecting, that kind of evidence. Then you have to sort these things, right? You're organizing evidence to say, yes, they're doing this, and yes, they're doing that. And then you are going to interpret this data because you have to determine if that performance level is aligned, right? Is it aligned to what it should be? As the leader of the building, you got to know these things. And then you're going to sit down with that teacher and you're going to talk about and you're going to provide feedback using evidence to actually lead that discussion. And as I said, I wished I had some of that here with me. When I'm tracking data or in a classroom observing, I write down wonder questions. I wonder why you did da 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 da. I wonder why the kids didn't move when she asked these kids to move. Like I literally do my observation by asking questions of the lesson so that when I get to the feedback, those questions are already there. Because I'm not wanting to come in and challenge or question their professionalism, because that's what people walk away with. Does she think I'm not a good teacher? Y'all know we do that because I did it. I'm not going to lie about who I was as a teacher. I thought, hey, if you're questioning me, you don't trust me to be the best that I can be. So just knowing when you're providing feedback, you want to do it from a place of care and you want to do it from a place of asking questions and not stating things you don't know to be fact. All righty, going down here to this next box. Please hear this part, guys. In your narrative for this assignment, you have to answer the question, what, by the Mississippi growth rubric, how many classroom observations should be provided to a teacher, right? There's your answer. There's a 3 minimum per year. Per school year, you have to be observed at least 3 times. 2 of those should be informal observations. One of those should be an unannounced formal. I'm going to say that again. In your narrative, people lose. Y'all would be so surprised. And I do this every second virtual class. And you'll be so surprised at how many people forget to add this to their narrative. But this box is so important in terms of you getting your points for this. 3 minimums, and you should list it. Per the Mississippi Growth rubric, a classroom should have at least 3 observations, 2 informals, and 1 unannounced formal. That will give you the points you need on your rubric. Okay. Any questions, comments, or concerns about that?
I have a question about that. So as a high school on a block schedule, when you say school year, are you talking August to May?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the minimum requirement for the state of Mississippi. Now, a lot of schools do a whole lot more. I am one. I do a whole lot more. We do informal observations every other week because the staff is 63, so I can't get in every class every week. So it's split in half. My AP has half the roster. I have half the roster. All brand new teachers to my school, they have me all year. They love it. No, they don't. But they have me all year, and we go in every other week to do observations, and feedbacks are that week as well. In Madison County, I can't speak for any other counties, we have to do 2 formal observations a year, 1 formal in the fall, and 1 first semester, and 1 second semester. But this is the minimum for the state. Good question. Thank you for asking. Are there any other questions about this part of the assignment? Hearing none. I wonder, will it let me? All right. Are you guys seeing my selected scripting form? Okay. Thank you. What I've asked you to do with folding your paper in half is going to be a mock of this, right? This is a scripting form, and for this assignment, you guys will have to fill this form out. And on the scripting form, you tell basically what the teacher is doing and what the student is doing, okay? Teacher using technology to share information with students. 6 out of the 10 students are actively listening. What are the other 4 doing? Probably nothing. And learning from the teacher as they focus. Okay, so as we go through, we're going to do a mock evaluation. I am going to show you 2 different videos, okay? High school people, I am sorry. These are both elementary videos, okay? I'm going to do this for a high school one time. I'm going to figure that out. Y'all will miss it. But what we're going to do is watch a video of a kindergarten teacher. On your sheet of paper, you're going to do teacher does, student does, right? And that is all you're doing. I will fast forward through the video some just because it is a longer video, or I'll stop it, but just so that we can get through some of it. And again, it is a mock evaluation. So just know it is not going to be perfect. She will be great though. Alrighty, this is when the sharing gets hinky. Oh, it's working today. Restarting this computer has been a game changer. Alrighty, so we are ready. I'm going to start playing it now. Make sure I got my volume. It's a little loud.
Doing some thinking for a moment, because I was thinking about the books, 2 of the stories we read, Dominic, off the table. Oh. I was thinking about spring. No. And then I was thinking about the story Down the Hill. And I was thinking, Davion, I was thinking about some of the things that are the same about the stories and some of the things that are different. CJ, in your spot sitting up. Some of the things that are the same and some of the things that are different. We're going to put those things up here on what we call a Venn diagram. Can you say that? Venn diagram. Oh, one more time, say it. Venn diagram. In order to do this, I'm going to need your help. So first I need you, just push your bodies a little closer. Not too close, remember, don't touch the person in front of you. Let's go. Look, there's one right here. Scoot up. CJ, you need to be out from under the table. Okay, eyes right here. Thank you, Kiesia. Eyes are up here. She's ready to learn. James is ready. Okay. Now I'm going to need a scout. A scout is going to be someone who watches, someone who's being responsible, sitting up. Dominic, would you come on up and be our scout first? No, Dominic. Sit down, Stevia. Sit down, sir. I want to show. Yes, Mr. Horn. You need to show Dominic that you can be responsible, sitting up straight and tall, eyes up here. Dominic, your job is to pay attention to Ms. Whitworth and to watch the class to see who's being responsible. Responsibility is doing what you're supposed to be doing. So you're sitting up straight and tall, you're listening. When it's time to turn and talk to your friends, you turn and talk. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. I'm thinking, we know what happened in spring. Back to what happened in the story Down the Hill. Let me help you. No, sit down. Sit down. It's falling down. Maybe don't sit down. Down. Thank you, sir. Look here. What happened at the beginning of the story Down the Hill? It was snowing. Was it snowing in spring? Oh, okay, so let's see. Down the hill. In the story Down the Hill, it was snowing. Snowing.
All right, let's take a pause from it for just a moment. Thinking about what you saw, you do have to come off mute. This is the actual interactive part of the lesson, okay? So thinking about what was it that the teacher was doing, only the teacher at this moment.
Talking the
Okay,
entire time and correcting.
okay,
I has had students all in the power zone with her and redirects in a calm tone while continue teaching.
okay. All righty, so
I
switching
had
gears. Oh, go ahead, David, I'm sorry.
I had she was setting up the bubble map and then kind of guiding the students while, setting forth what the expectations were for the students, while also still trying to deal with behavior issues in the background.
Okay, so let's talk about the students. What are the students doing?
The majority of them are waiting patiently.
Okay,
Sitting in a designated space that they're given, most of them.
okay. So that's part of this, is just seeing what you see as you're watching the video, right? That's part of it. So I'm gonna share a different sheet. So let me get to it. Okay, wait. It's navigating a lot of boxes today. Let's look at another sheet. As you just watched a few minutes of the video, you didn't get a bunch, but you saw enough. So when you're doing this assignment, you also have to do a evidence sorting form, right? I will say lesson design. Evidence may include lesson plans, classroom observations, pre and post observation conferences. So as you're rating, I don't like to use the word judging, as you're rating this particular teacher, would you say she's a 4, 3, 2, or 1? And I will leave that. Hopefully y'all can see it. Let me make it a little bigger. Someone brave, come off of mute and just rate it.
3.
Well, do we have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay.
You're saying a 3, Juliana?
I would say that she's a 3. I wasn't aware she was reflecting collaboration with other school staff.
Right. And
So
you
she was
can't,
definitely using standards related.
okay, good. Because you really can't see the other parts of it. That's the, you know, downside of it being a video. So looking,
That's what I was gonna say. It's just we need more information to see lesson plans and PLC, that kind of thing.
right, but rating it based off what you have. That's what we're gonna do for this assignment. All right, so still under lesson design, lessons have high levels of learning for all students. Just off of the little bit that you watched.
I would say she would be a 4 here.
Okay. And do you want to tell us why?
Well, she was connecting for the 2 different books. She was recalling information from a previous book. So she was re-engaging students from something that was previously covered and then comparing to the new book.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree. She did have some behavior kids, but they're also kindergartners. So, you know, they're like kittens in a basket. You get 2 or 3 in the basket, one jumps back out. And so I agree. She was really aligning the instruction to her standards, and she was actually doing a harder skill because they're comparing 2 different things.
I
In
also think that she did well with her communication with the students that weren't
right.
doing what they were supposed to be doing. She was punctual. She got right to it and reset the expectation and reminded them of what she needed them to do.
Good job. Thank
It-
you so much.
This was just insightful for me watching a lower classroom because I'm accustomed to older kids and student center and like certain activities. Like that would be almost a way lower rating score in my classroom versus that classroom. That's why I said she's doing all the talking, but I'm so wired to secondary.
Mm-hmm. But you may become an administrator in an elementary school. And I said that about high school. I'm like, how do y'all evaluate Spanish? I don't speak that. French. I mean, like it's so many, and then an AP course but good instruction is what you look for. Doesn't matter what group or what subject area, you're always looking for good quality instruction. Now, this one is one that you may not see a lot of because it's taking responsibility for the learning and monitoring student learning. But when you're doing your observation for this particular assignment, you will be able to answer this one. And you'll be able to do domain 2. Domain 3, you should be able to glean something from as you look at your video because it's the classroom community. Now, when we get to domain 4, this is where you really can't see this part because you don't know the professional responsibility piece. You don't know if she's going to PLCs, if they're faculty meetings, if she's doing, you know, professional development when you're doing your video. So for this particular part of your assignment, under evidence, just put NA because you can't see it. NA will be the best answer for domain 4, okay? Please write that down because that is going to be part of it. And I'll even say this much, any parts of the lesson when you're doing your video, if you don't feel like you can answer that because there's not enough evidence to support your answer, just put NA in that area, okay? But keep in mind, I've watched all these videos, okay? All right, now let's see, let me go back. We're going to look at another classroom. So flip your sheet over. This is a 4th grade ELA classroom that you're going to watch. And it is a little different. So you may actually, Kelsey, see some things differently than because it's not the younger kiddos. And I'm going to let it play just a little bit longer.
What are we here to learn? We are. I can identify the main idea and supporting details from what I read and create a summary using the supporting details. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back if you're ready. Okay, let's turn those papers over that you have on your desk. This is your opportunity to do a closed reading activity where you read that article. You can use your pencil to highlight any information that you think will help you in finding the main idea. We're going to be using the reading cards, the blue reading cards. So when you're done, simply turn it over so we'll know when we can move on. You may begin. Feel free to mark it at this time. Water striders. Imagine yourself zooming across the top of a pond is the fact that it can walk across the water. You can mostly on other insects that live near water. In fact, like all insects, the water strider has 6 legs. For us to work on some text dependent or food for other insects. Okay, now it's time for us to work on some text-dependent questions. We are going to play bingo while we answer the questions today. You have some spiders that you're going to use as your markers. Here's how the game will be played. Your entire group is one team. I will tell you what row or column we're working on at that time. Whenever I show you what row or column we're working on, your team is going to try to find the answers to those questions. They must be highlighted in the text, and you must be able to tell me where you found it with the paragraph and the sentence number. Here we go. The first thing we're going to work on is across the top. What insect does a water strider resemble? How would you describe the size of a water strider? What fact can you select to show the speed of a water strider? Go.
The water mosquito. It was like a mosquito. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so put a spider right there.
What's your answer going to be?
Mosquito.
Okay.
The size of a water.
You're going to find it in the text. You have to be able to highlight it to use it for an answer. What fact can you select to show the speed of a water strider? Abby has an answer. Share it, Abby. What did you see?
I saw sentence 5. I think it's in 1. Water spiders also have
Go on and finish.
good vision and can move quickly.
Awesome job. Awesome. Okay, I heard my first group. Water striders. I heard it. Okay, let's see if they've got it. Now they're going to help you out because remember when we respond, the first thing we do is tell the paragraph, then the sentence number, then we give our fact, but then we answer our question. And I'm going to type the answer up here. That way you'll make sure you've highlighted the correct section. Here we go. Which insect does a water strider resemble? Hudson, can you tell me where you found that answer?
Paragraph 2, sentence 1 of a water strider is a water bug that looks like a large mosquito.
Okay, so he said paragraph 2, sentence 1. And what is your answer then?
Large mosquito.
A large mosquito. He is correct. Looking good. Next one. How would you describe the size of a water strider?
All right, a little bit different video. Kids are more independent and can, do more. So let's talk about what did we see the teacher doing? Teacher does what?
She has a lot of verbal cues that they, like she did the camera and they know immediately what that means. So they turn and do it. Or she gives them the verbal cue for when you're done, turn that over. And so they have like a good flow and transition and know when to move.
Good.
She also explained expectations through everything she expected them to do.
Yes.
She was circulating it throughout the classroom to check for understanding in the groups. And
Okay.
she modeled, like she said, she modeled the directions,
She did.
expectations.
I love how she opened the lesson. She told them exactly what they were learning for the day. She gave them step by step what they were going to do. You're going to read it. I'm going to read it. And then you're going to work independently with your groups. She really modeled. And I mean, when I say set all the expectations, there was no room to go off track. What did we notice the students doing?
I'm sorry that I keep talking, everybody, but I think my favorite part was the visual learning in the classroom. So like what makes you say that type activity. So the bingo was engaging, it forced collaboration, but it also forced them to be able to prove, kind of like math, showing your work, the highlighting.
I like the visuals as well. The game made it more engaging. She used the group activity to make sure that the teacher, as well as the peers, got to connect with each other. And then afterwards, she collaborated with the students to ensure that there was understanding on what they had just learned.
He also made sure each student was involved. When she saw one did not answer, she called that out and had her answer something.
Okay. So let's go back and look
I
at.
like this activity. I think I'm gonna have to use it.
Oh yeah, it's a great. I love that. And I also like how she asked them to do text evidence. Tell me where you found it. Like they had to be able to support it. And I think kids struggle so much with that part. So now going back to the evidence sorting form, how would you rate her now on lesson design under domain 1, number 1? You got to press the mute button to come off mute.
4. I would give her a 4.
Okay, tell me why.
So I would also give her a 4.
Because I feel like her lesson was tied to the standards, textual evidence, main idea. And then she also made connections with the passage and allowed for the students to kind of self-teach at the same time.
Okay, so when you give a score for this particular sheet, when you turn it in, you're going to circle what you feel is the correct rating. And then here for evidence, you have to list that out. Why did you give that 4? So that's why I wanted you guys to tell me why. Because once you do this sheet for your activity, you will need to circle the score as well as provide that statement of evidence. So looking at domain 1, number 2, high levels of learning for all students, what would you think? What would you rate her for that?
The only question I have on that, like the student who couldn't find the answer, she asked the girl next to him to provide the answer. So I guess my thought process when watching that was, well, how does that prove what he knows? It just shows what she knows. So when rating this, that would be my question to you is how do you rate that based off of that?
So just think about your classroom. That happens a lot, but you also make a mental note for small group day. I'm gonna have to pull him because I feel like he's still struggling. But that one student doesn't negate the whole lesson.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. And in some situations, your classrooms too. Again, if you're in classes a lot, he may be a student who does not like to verbalize his answers. And so she called on a partner to help him, but understanding he may have gotten it right. And again, as a leader, you would know those things because those are your students, right?
So then I would rate her a 4. As far as, relevant connections, opportunity to challenging tasks. And I mean, I would rate her a 4. Like, I feel like she met all of those bullet points. I did note it like that one. So I just didn't know from a principal standpoint, if you do notice that, do you immediately mark them down or?
I am a look for the positive person.
Okay.
You got to literally, and I'm going to say this like the young people said, you really got to suck it up for me to really hit you hard. I mean, it's got to be one of those lessons where I'm like, did you like bar hop all night and think you could wing it day? Like, I am so serious when I walk in a classroom, because here's the thing, as the leader of the building, you go in intentionally hiring the best, right? That's who you hire. So then when you go in a classroom, you go in with the lens of, I need to support this person. So if it is a lesson that was terrible, then I do go in that feedback, want to ask questions to figure out what happened. And so, and I've had one that, it was bad. And her comment to me was, I should have not come to work today. My dad is in the hospital. I'm like, please go pack up your things and go home. You're no good to yourself trying to push through on something like this, you know? So things like that come out in feedbacks, or they come out in the lesson. That particular teacher came to find me that next minute. I walked out, I was in the hallway, and she was like, I just need to talk to you real quick. I'm so sorry. This lesson was horrible. My dad's in the hospital. They rushed him there last night. Ma'am, you shouldn't be here. Let me find somebody to cover your room. But you hire the best teachers, so you want to give grace. That makes. All right. All right, guys, looking at the next one, and I only want us to do this because this is where a lot of students struggle, is like providing evidence. And Kelsey, I'm really glad you asked that, because one, it's a lot of bullets and no one's going to meet every bullet every time. That's also why those informal observations are so important, because you will see these things informally that maybe on a formal day, there may not be all of the things. Okay. All right, guys, I'm not going to go through every last one of these. I just want you guys to have an understanding, a general gist, shall I say, of how to fill this form out. And that's going to be how you'll do it, is just you rate, then provide the evidence to support your rating. And that'll be how you turn it in. Let me go back to, I want us to look at that actual assignment. Okay, there it is. Okay, so I want to look at all of the stages of this assignment and what it requires you to turn in. Okay, so as we look at this particular assignment, and it is due on April 20th, Easter Sunday. So try to do it before so you can enjoy your family on this day. As we look at it, you do have to turn in the scripting form, and that's the one that has what the teacher's doing and what the student is doing. And you also have to turn in the evidence sorting form, and that's where you rate and tell why you gave that rating. So one, that's the second document. The third document in this activity is you have to complete a narrative. The narrative, and I'm going to go down here to number 5 on the instructions. Paragraph 1 of your narrative should briefly, look at that word, briefly. I probably need to highlight it, briefly. I don't want a 2-page paper. This should be a 1-pager. Some people get it done in a 1/2-pager. This should not be something you're spending a whole lot of time on. You're just briefly covering what occurred during the observation. I do not want minute for minute what you wrote on the scripting form. I'm going to read your scripting form. So what you're going to do is just briefly cover what that was about, right? And then you're also expected to tell the expected number of evaluations. Remember, I showed it to y'all on the Mississippi Growth Rubric booklet. That has to be in paragraph 1, right? Now, paragraph 2 is your reflection. Look at these questions. Let me get down here to this rubric. Paragraph 2 is your reflection. How you felt during the evaluation. Was the instrument easy to follow? Was it some difficulties you may have encountered? Or did you find it difficult to understand? That is all paragraph 2 is. I thought this rubric was easy. I had the video. I could pause. I could rewind. I mean, that is it. Give you a reflection of it. But answering these questions. For the narrative portion of this, you do need to provide a cover sheet, the narrative, and if you pull anything from Carbo and Marzano, you would put that in as a reference. If you cite the Mississippi Growth rubric, that would be a reference. That is it for this assignment. Now, here are your videos. There's a 3rd grade ELA, a 6th grade ELA, a 4th grade math, and a 10th grade math. You're only selecting one video to watch and do the mock teacher evaluation for. So let me revisit what I said before. You have to submit the scripting form, the evidence form, and then you have to do a narrative. That's what's required. Some of these forms are very, very complicated in digital format. If you can download it, it may work for you. But if you're in a situation where that doesn't work and you print them and you write on them and you scan it up and submit it that way, I am comfortable with that. I can read most handwriting. So if you have to print it to upload it, that is fine with me. I am not one of those that's a stickler for it to be typed. Just know whatever way works best for you, I'm comfortable with that, okay? Any questions about that, about your mock teacher evaluation? And that is due April 20th. Hearing no questions for this, I will come out of Canvas. Okay. Now, that is all the things that we needed to go over for this particular virtual class. So at this point, if you have any questions about anything, this would be the time you can ask. I am missing, let's see, Courtney Hagan. Did you sign on?
I'm here.
You. Angela Harris, I see you. Thalia Jones. Kelsey Poole, I see you. You've talked. I know you're here. She's like, oh, please give me my credit. I see you. And then Shadasia, I did see you sign on. You chatted a little bit today, so great. And then Charity Robinson, I see you, Charity. All righty. I'm telling you, an absence on a virtual class really hits your participation really, really hard. If you can sign on, it is the best thing you can do. And I can't excuse it unless you're at military duty. And they're really particular about that. So I try to follow, I'm a rule follower.
Dr. Cockrell, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Since we covered so much, do you post the recording so we can go back if there's something we want to go back and look at?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I made sure to hit record this time. I didn't post the last one. If you guys remember, I forgot to hit record. That was my fault. Any other questions, guys? And if there are none, we're gonna get off. Hearing none. If you do need anything, I'm sorry, I've been a little bit of rubbish with answering emails. I don't know, my phone did something really weird and I don't know, I got a flood of emails on it. So it's back working correctly. I will be a better steward of answering emails more timely. But that is the best way to get in contact with me. And if I don't answer in a timely fashion, send it again. That means she must have looked at it and didn't respond, because I do that. But that is all I have for y'all for today. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, email me. Have a great weekend.
I have one more question. We do only have one more virtual meeting, correct?
Yes, one more, April 26th. Yes, Saturday, April 26th is the last one.
All right.
All righty. Y'all have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.